Is the real issue the fact that women can't sit on the stand and be in charge of everybody else? Or is the real issue who are we actually helping and serving and catering to in the church? And do we need to change that?
This is gonna be the best day ever. This is gonna be the best day ever. Wake up.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, and today I'm joined via Zoom by Luke Hanson, editor-in-chief of Ward Radio News. And today we're going to be reacting to Ward Radio News's most recent article about women being greatly overrepresented in general conference according to topic tags. You know, it's so interesting. So often feminists and advocates against men will try and use numerical measurable quantifiers that, in my opinion, are misrepresented. But either way, they're numbers, and develop stats about how, bigoted the church is because of, X, Y, or Z thing. Number of church leaders that are men in comparison to number of church leaders that are women. Well, Luke Hanson here teamed up with a couple of other people that he interviewed to make a really interesting article pointing out that, hey, actually women are greatly overrepresented in general conference according to topic tags. You know, I'm veering verbose and I'm not doing as good a job as you can do, Luke. Please tell us, my man, what is going on here and what did you find?
Yeah, so I wrote this article as a news piece, and now this is me being not a news person anymore. So now commentary hat is on. I did the news, put the facts, give the data that I found, quote the people that I talked to, and now I'm the one talking about this. So obviously there are focuses, there are shifts in focus. Actually on Twitter, the thing going around right now is people talking about, they didn't talk about covenants before. Now they're talking about covenants. And somehow that's supposed to mean, I don't know, it's supposed to mean like the church isn't true or something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay,
read the Book of Mormon and, Nephi is talking way more about covenants than Alma does. Does that mean the book? I don't know these people. So
yeah, exactly.
So you can look at these trends, and there's a site called the General Conference Corpus that people can look at word frequencies and all these trends and patterns and stuff. And so one thing that was pointed out to us is that not in the General Conference Corpus, so this is not how often the words appear, but this is like the church themselves, the interns, whoever does these things assigns topics to each of the General Conference talks.
Okay,
so they might say, this General Conference talk, it talked about the atonement, so I'll give it that tag. But it also talked about patriarchal blessings, so I'm going to give it that tag. And tithing, so I'm going to give it that tag. And then it has those 3 tags, and whenever somebody searches by that topic, that particular talk will pop up.
So, for example, I can just look up, gambling. If I'm wondering what's the morality of gambling, and I'm doing this in...
I'm wondering if that is a topic.
Oh, what's funny is
they have like 100... How many was it? 140 topics or so.
Okay.
So I don't know if gambling's one of them or not.
Okay. Well, either way, it kicked me out because it didn't know if I was human or not, and I'm probably going to have to do a bunch of CAPTCHA to just log in and get an account. So we're not going to be doing that in real time. So just tell us how it went, man.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So obviously a lot of these talks are just like general church stuff, tithing, Jesus Christ, faith, repentance. But there are a couple of topics that designate the talk as most likely, obviously this isn't an exact science, but most likely being geared towards men and women.
Okay,
and
interesting.
Or women. And so we actually pulled the data, assigned, which topics were geared towards men and women, and then just compared those talks to each other.
Okay.
So do you have the article pulled up right now on the screen?
Yep. It pulled up. It says General Conference has been part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the church, since its inception in 1830. During General Conference, a worldwide membership of the church gathers to listen to the gospel messages from church leaders. Within days, these talks are added to an online library containing 50 years of General Conference messages. And it says some tags are for topics geared more towards men or either women. And you've got a cool graph here. I assume that's what you're about to reference, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, hit it.
So we'll notice that the top 3 topics that have vastly more references than the other ones are talks with the tags of women, Relief Society, and motherhood.
Wow, look at
Now
this,
those
dude.
all lean in one direction. It's not rocket
Okay.
science. These are all more women directed talks.
Yeah,
And
look at
fourth
that.
place is
Okay.
our first man talk. Manly man talk. So the women's talk have 128, 78, and 62 tags respectively. This is for 50
Uh-huh.
years of general conference. The first topic geared toward men is fathers with 48. And then after
Wow.
that, it goes to young women. Young women is slightly under 40. It's like 38. And then there's a big drop down to get into the teens for a couple of others like brotherhood, Aaronic priesthood, priesthood quorum, sisterhood, Melchizedek priesthood. And then there's like two talks that were given the tag of womanhood,
Oh my
which I don't,
gosh.
they probably should have just put that under women, but yeah.
I mean, when it comes to just the raw data of conference talks, the men are utterly buried in importance. If this were the measurable quantifier, I mean, and I don't see another measurable quantifier. Isn't this the exact same measurable quantifier that Julie Hanks used to talk about covenants and the garment speech and so on and so
Well,
forth?
what she used was the general conference corpus, and so that lets you see frequency of word use in the talks. Now, the problem with that is that if you're trying to search general conference talks for that, well, the scriptures use the term man or mankind a ton.
Okay,
Or
yes.
even if you're trying to search father, that might be father in heaven. And so not a talking about earthly fathers. And so it's very hard to I tried to do this and I just couldn't find a way to use the corpus to find talk
So what are we
geared
saying
towards
here?
one gender or the other.
So what's this data telling us? That basically general conference is for women and not for men, or what?
Well, so that's when I reached out to Kurt Franken from
Okay.
Leading Saints, and he kind of gave some of his insights to put in the article because I don't want to editorialize here. You know, this isn't my opinion in the article. It's just like the data and then what other people have said about it.
Okay.
So going through the interview, people can go and read for themselves. I encourage you, wardradio.com/news. It's the first news story popping up. You'll see a little man and a woman standing on top of bar graphs, and the woman is way higher than the man.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's how you know you found the article.
All right. Yeah.
But he gave a lot of opinions, but essentially what it boiled down to, and what I put in the article was he did come to this conclusion of he's saying that I think that church right now, not just general conference, but church in general, if we look at how church meetings are structured, if we look at what people are talking about in general conference, if we look at how the temple experience is, if we look at the funding, you want to talk about discrepancy? I mean, the Relief Society funding versus Elders Quorum funding.
Dude, that's true. In fact, it blew my mind. I was just reading in this article that he pointed out that there is no leadership structure for the elders in the church. That literally we have a young men's general presidency, a young women's general presidency. We have a Relief Society general presidency, but where's the Elders Quorum general presidency? Nowhere to be found. And we just barely got the young men's general presidency to have an Instagram account. So we're failing the young men, and we're just utterly neglecting the middle-aged / above 18-year-old men. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. And this is a savage quote. I have to pull this up right now. I didn't know Kurt Franken was such a savage. This is awesome. He had said, I would say General Conference has become more of a feminine experience, Franken said. But it's true. And the stats don't lie. The stats don't lie. They're not talking to men.
Yeah, he kind of broke it down into two categories. The first one was that in general conference, you don't, it happens. We're not going to pretend like it doesn't happen at all. It happened this past conference, but you don't get that many stories of like father and son interaction or relationship, or man to man interaction.
Because that's patriarchy. That's patriarchy. And could you ever imagine Uchtdorf getting up there? And let's just say it was the gambling talk or the law of chastity talk. All right. Could you imagine him saying, brothers, man to man, love one woman, don't sleep around. Like, could you ever see him preambling a general conference talk saying man to man? Oh my gosh. The laptops that would boot up, the church office building employees that would just run for cover and then quickly get on Twitter and be like, I decry all patriarchy in all of its forms. You know what I'm saying? Like, just, it's pathetic. And these people fear them. Like, honestly, they're the new priests of Baal that are feared, by our church leaders. Like, good thing Elijah didn't have to build that, like, have that little, altar competition,
Good thing he didn't have to have it approved by Curtin McConkie is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Because if Curtin McConkie were in charge, back when Elijah the prophet was trying to have his showdown with the priests of Baal, they would have literally just sent a strongly worded letter to Baal and then called it a day and just let him take over. All right, keep going.
Hart and I don't necessarily agree on everything.
Yeah, okay,
I'll just put that out there.
You can cover your butt. You can cover
but I
your
think
butt.
Kurt would be partly of this opinion. But yeah. So, what was the second part? The second part was that men usually crave an experience. We're speaking in generalities here, but women sitting down talking, that's their thing. You look at the number of words spoken in a marriage in the general in society, women they're like, what, double men, triple men sometimes. And that's just normal. It's not that the man is suppressing his feelings and it's going to go into some sort of patriarchal rage. No, it's just like men are not built like that.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we're speaking in generalities. And so what you used to have that we haven't had for 3 years is the priesthood session. So it would be the same thing. You'd go and listen to messages, but it was an experience. You'd put your tie on, you'd put your coat on, you'd say goodbye to mom and grandma and the aunts at home, and you would drive over to the church building with all the other men, and you'd sit in the dark chapel and watch priesthood session.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'd get ice cream after, or they would have organized some sort of ice cream thing after. And it was a manly experience that you had.
And by the way, for those of you just tuning in, for the non-members of the church just tuning in, the chapel's dark because we're using a giant screen, and so it can be seen better. Yes. It's not dark because we're engaged in some kind of obscure ritual. It's dark so we can see the screen better. All right. So keep going.
Oh, it's true. It's true. But so that's the ways that it doesn't quite cater to men. There's a lot of touchy-feely. There's a lot of messages, positive messages, but we've neglected the experience aspect. To an extent.
So I'm looking at this right here, and it says critiques of the church often focus on the inequalities in power between men and women in the church, particularly that men receive more leadership roles within the authority than women. Many feel that the church is effectively a patriarchy that ignores and silences women. Oh, gosh. This was again demonstrated in the uproar, which included prominent LDS influencers like Julie Hanks over allegations the church was deleting hundreds of critical comments on Instagram about women's empowerment in the church. Of course, it was revealed later, as you state here, that comments were not being deleted and could not. And it was a temporary issue with Instagram. Yeah, that's a really nice euphemism for putting out. People didn't know how large international algorithmic based platforms work. And when there's a glitch, it spins, it changes the digital rotation of the earth. It's not the church's fault. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, well, according to Dr. Julie 1752 likes Hanks, the pain of thousands of women deleted just like that. Seriously? Or proof of the problem of inequality. Tragic. Exclamation point.
Man, that is just brutal.
She didn't do the Donald Trump all caps, but other than that, she ticks all the boxes for outrage.
That's funny. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to finish up your article here. Kurt Franken believes that there are tons of hidden discrepancies between men and women in the church that often favor women. Oh, them be fighting words. He said these include differences in funding for Elders Quorum and Relief Society and the lack of a presidency or advisory council for adult men. Oh, this is so true. And he pointed out more serious discrepancies as well. Nobody sits and thinks of the discrepancy of mental health. The Elders Quorum is more likely to experience self-termination than any other group in a typical ward. Dude, I mean, it's true. It's true, man. So what can we glean from this? I mean, I hate it when people, go out and find some stat and they make a mountain out of a molehill because they got one little thing that they can do a YouTube video on. So I don't want to be engaging in that. However, I can't help but look at this graph and think, holy moly. I mean, it's like 9-1 girl to guy topic talks getting given here in general conference. And it's definitely not like a masculine experience. I don't know if I would call it a feminine experience, like Kurt Franken said, but if there's only yin and there's yang and we're dealing with a binary here, I definitely feel comfortable saying I feel General Conference caters more to the ethos of being well received amongst women than amongst men. It seems like if it's trying to please somebody, I don't think it's overtly, I wouldn't say it's overtly trying to appeal to women, but it's definitely, it seems to be predominantly taking into more consideration the complaints that women have had about conference and not the complaints that men have had about conference. Does that make sense? It seems to be correcting. I don't think it's necessarily going towards women as much as correcting away from women's complaints, which is inherently towards women. Right.
I think it's just kind of like you were leading to earlier. It's just so taboo in society for men to like engage in activism on behalf of themselves. Like the look that gives in society today, even if you have valid complaints or suggestions or critiques, and I don't think we should be like complaining a ton about the church. The church is definitely way better for men than whatever that secular nihilistic you society, don't get married. Clearly the church is better than that. So I don't want to blow this out of proportion, but the look of white middle class generally fairly well off Latter-day Saint men complaining about things that might be improved in the church for their experience. I think the look of that is just like, even people who have these complaints don't even think to address them because there's just so much social taboo also, about that.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a complaint as much as I'm like, come on, we're supposed to mourn with those that mourn, and we're called as Christians, okay, to comfort those that stand in need and comfort. And there is an epidemic of nihilism in this world. There's an epidemic of self-termination. There is an epidemic of depression and negativity and self-harm and so on and so forth. And if we love these people as brothers, we will want to do whatever it takes to help them. And if the most vulnerable amongst us statistically actually is a man in your ward, then I don't want to see stats like this coming out of leadership. We should be seeing the opposite, right? This is a classic reaction to a problem. If I were the leader of a country and somebody came to me with a bar graph that said, oh, look, poverty has hit this area 10 times harder. It gets more hurricanes that wipe out more infrastructure and this and that. If I'm the head of FEMA, I'm going to say, okay, cool. Well, we need to put more service centers within a faster radius of people that more consistently get hit by hurricanes. And we also need to consider ways that we can partner with Department of Transportation to retrofit the bridges, the way that we can partner with the civil engineers to retrofit the levees and the thises and that's. Like, you respond to issues based on data and hopefully in our church also revelation. But I mean, this bar graph you guys assembled, I mean, the first bar of just women gobbles up the second and the third bar, which are Motherhood and Relief Society. You know, like we're not even a close second, not a close third. Mm-hmm. We are a distant fourth that is probably, just by my visual estimation here, 10% the size of all the other. It's like 9-1 here.
Yeah. And there's even another interesting thing is that you'll have a tag for women. That's the highest bar in this bar chart. There's no tag for men. There's not even the category of a talking about men in the tags. Gosh,
you're right. I have to go all the way to the right where it ends after Melchizedek priesthood, and there's no tag after womanhood.
Nope. Yeah, that was all the tags that we found. I think it was like 11. And you'll have young women. So there's like 39 talks in the past 50 years that got categorized as speaking about young women. There's no tag for young men. Now, granted, there is a tag about Aaronic priesthood. However, I'm pretty sure President Nelson's most recent talk was categorized as Aaronic priesthood, and that's because it was talking about the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood, not talking about, hey there, 14-year-old boys, I'd like to speak to you now, you know?
Yeah.
So that's not really a 1-to-1 ratio. And then you also have womanhood, that little tiny one at the end there that's maybe like 5 talks or so. There's no corresponding tag for manhood.
Exactly. Oh my god.
So some of these topics, it's not that they're less represented, they're just not even on the radar of the tags.
So
a church has designated talks for.
okay, so before we end here, like, what's your takeaway from this, man? Like, is this just evidence of neglect? Like, I don't know what else. If we are making literally 100, I'm looking at this graph, we have made 120 Relief Society talks based off this bar graph here. And on motherhood, over 60, Relief Society, nearly 80, young women, 40, on Aaronic priesthood, less than 10, priesthood quorums, less than 10, Melchizedek priesthood, like 2, and then 0 just on men. We got 130 of these talks on women, but literally not a single one on men. What? Like, how is that even possible?
There's an extent to which this isn't necessarily a bad thing. For example, if people have a lot of concerns about women in the church, it's not like it's a bad thing for that to be addressed at General Conference. I think it makes sense, and you could even say it's a good thing that the leaders are talking about concerns the members are sharing. So I understand that part of it. But then there's also the opposite side to it of, like, there could be men out there who are saying, well, do I matter? Or if I do matter, do I matter less? Because I'm not being talked about as much. And so there's definitely both sides to this. And Kurt said this in our interview. I didn't put it in the thing, but he said the men aren't completely off the hook here. Like, your Relief Society president or just your General Relief Society members probably going to take a lot more initiative to start a book club or something than the men do. And I don't want to try to say that, hey, you men out there that are working 60 hours a week, or 80 if you're Cardin, you're not doing enough, you need to start more book clubs, it's your fault. I don't really mean to do that, but at the same time, you don't want to just, like, get off work, come home, and, like, do whatever you're doing on just, like, sitting on the couch at home being like, why doesn't the church do things that are good for me too, you know?
Yeah.
So there's that balance as well. I think overall, though, we all, from the top to the bottom, could do a little more to help men. There's research out there that says that a father in the home is a better indicator of the faithfulness of the children than the mother at home. It's even possible from the data that having an active or inactive mother is statistically insignificant. And it's really only if the father is active or not. This is from Kirk Franken. This is the information I'm getting from him.
Don't worry.
So
don't bring the smoke, feminists. Don't bring the smoke. Not on me.
Well, it's an indication that institutions in society that want to be strong and want to be enduring probably should focus on trying to produce strong men. And that's going to secure their future, which, when you think about it, shouldn't be that big of a news.
Yeah.
Looking at society. But today, apparently,
it's almost like they read Herodotus. It's almost like they read Herodotus. It's almost like they read the Iliad. It's almost as though, I don't know,
the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, the Book of Mormon. You know, you think, wow, okay. All right, man. Well, guys, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. I mean, this data is absolutely, I don't know, what's the adjective that we should use here, Luke? This data is damning. I don't know. That kind of makes it sound like it's an indictment. This data is disturbing. This data is troubling. What is this data?
Data is, I can't think of a D word that
well, no, it doesn't have to be an alliteration, but like what's the adjective here? That, to me, it seems troubling. To me, this kind of graph is troubling.
Mm-hmm. I think the data suggests that we should be more cognizant of, is the real issue the fact that women can't sit on the stand and be in charge of everybody else? Or is the real issue, who are we actually helping and serving and catering to in the church? And do we need to change that?
Yes. You know, you said it much more diplomatically than me. So that's going to be our intro. That is going to be our intro. Luke, you just made it into the intro. Good job. You are now the face of men's rights in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
The question is, do I make it in the thumbnail, though?
Oh, you'll make it. Or are you going to
put Jonah Barnes in the thumbnail again instead of me when I'm in the video?
Oh, crap. Did I do that once?
It's happened like once or twice, yeah.
You're in the thumbnail, brother. You are in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
So anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think General Conference has basically become a feminine experience that mostly caters to women? Do you think General Conference is just what it kind of has always been and nothing to see here? Or do you think that it's just one big masculine hoorah session and we don't need to touch it? Please let us know your opinions below. And as always, for this and more, please make sure you check us out at WardRadio.com.
This is gonna be the best day ever. This is gonna be the best day ever. Wake up, top of the morning. The bacon is crispy, the coffee is pouring. My meditation is peeling an orange. The bank says I'm already scoring.